Greetings, Internet. Welcome to episode number 335 of the Comic Watchers Show. He's Chad, I'm Matt, and this is our show where we talk about comics. Chad, how are you doing this week, sir?
I'm surviving. A little tired, but, always enough energy to chat comics.
Yes, very important work we do. Well, joining us this week is writer Fred Scwartz, here to talk about his pitch black superhero comic FISTICUFFS from SourcePoint Press.
No,
not SourcePoint.
Not SourcePoint.
It's still published by me, Schwartz Art LLC.
We're doing so sorry. Where did I get SourcePoint from?
Oh, I did not know, but yeah.
I can hook you up.
Clearly.
But hey, yeah, that's me. I'm Fred Scwartz, writer and creator of FISTICUFFS, and I'm glad to be here today. Can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah.
So before we start, was there anything in the news that you guys wanted to talk about, or anything that you read this week that was particularly interesting? I mean, for me, it was the Next Level one-shot was pretty good. I mean, it kind of did what it was supposed to do, as I said in my review. It, kind of set up the next couple books to come out on Wednesday, and then teases the next Suicide Squad. Because, you always got to have a Suicide Squad.
Absolutely you do. And who better to throw into the lion's den than Deadshot himself? Or back.
I wonder if you're... Well, he's like the staple from, back when it was originally.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Fred, did you read anything good this week?
No, actually, I mean, I've been mostly, catching up on like older stuff. With the I've been a fan of the Green Lantern show so far, so I've been going back on catching up on. I told you the Absolute Green Lantern. I kind of blew through that series pretty quickly, and I started on Absolute Flash, like we talked about. I kind of began to choke on it a little bit halfway through, but I'm going to soldier on through because I'm really excited for this crossover they have going up and seeing how they're going to do an absolute version of whatever their inversion of the Justice League is.
Right. Very true.
And I'm actually curious. Do you guys know? Are we ever going to get any kind of crossover between the Absolute and the main universe? I know they're doing that. The one-off where they're like, it's going to be like a crime, and one is going to be solved by regular Batman, and one is going to be solved by Absolute Batman.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I know that they kind of met during the KO event there, but I don't know how much they really know about each other than that. And so I don't know. It should be interesting. I know. Yeah, I think you're talking about the Batman of Two Worlds thing
Yes.
for Batman Day. And
Yes.
So, but I don't know if there's any. I'm sure there eventually is going to be a plan because I'm sure that Scott Snyder's thought of it.
I'm certain he has. The man is nothing if not a good planner.
But the universe just seems to keep like growing out, like like horizontally, like it just seems to be like growing and stuff. And I wonder if like it's gotten like bigger than their initial plans, or if they still have a plan to cross it over. Because I'm just curious what's going to happen to poor Booster Gold, who we left in the middle of nowhere. So
right, very true.
He actually came back during the during the KO event and kind of was. Spoilers, he was possessed by Darkseid. So,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's quite all right. When you miss out on an event like KO, which I did for reading too much other stuff, you deserve to have it spoiled. That's okay with me. I don't mind.
DC KO was pretty cool. All credit where credit's due to the creative team behind that monster.
Nice.
So
I can't think of any major news items that hit this week, Chad.
Well, there is the one about the one creator who's getting back in the limelight.
That's true. I guess we do have to talk about that. So yeah, Warren Ellis is going to do a project for a DC compendium, I believe it is, or a one shot of some sort. He's going to write an essay. This is following his news of a original graphic novella at Image coming out in November. I forget the name of it. The preview pages that they showed were frankly kind of unimpressive, in my opinion, and in an unbiased opinion, I should say. This is after, of course, during the height of #MeToo movement, he was outed as kind of a serial sexual predator and of up and coming female artists, and used his position of power to have his way with them. So not a good look for either company involved, I don't think, because he certainly hasn't had any acts of contrition to satisfy the parties involved, and obviously it's the victims whose opinions matter more than anyone else, whether or not they feel like that he has made proper amends. So we'll see what happens. It's an ugly situation, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think I think that's the kind of the big things that happened this week. So why don't we talk about FISTICUFFS?
Which
something
is
happier
coming out from Source Point.
No, it's coming out from me, Fred Scwartz. So where would you guys like to begin?
Well, why don't we start off with your how you got into comics and what made you want to start writing your own?
Absolutely. Well, I've been a lifelong comic fan and nerd, going back to childhood. Nothing was better than Saturday afternoons. You throw on the cartoons or the wrestling in the background. You play with your action figures. You invent stories. You draw characters. Like you read comics. You make your own comics. Like it was amazing. But I as you were growing, it wasn't until like 17 or 18 that I actually thought I could write myself. Like I always thought it was, something above my head. And then I discovered the films of like Kevin Smith, and I was like, oh, and I don't mean this in a snarky way, but like, no, it's not. Like I'm also a guy from Jersey, and I can make something kind of small and personal too. And when I adopted that, like kind of, I think when we're young, we tend to like emulate our heroes. And I kind of looked at what Kevin Smith did, and I kind of wanted to pattern myself after him in that I would kind of do one piece that was more like silly entertainment and one piece that, was kind of personal. And FISTICUFFS began as a creative writing assignment in a literary class. And I'm not like a great prose writer. I always describe my writing style as like street cat, not house cat. And so I knew that it had to be a story that, or need to be a character's voice that I could write well, and something that I understood. So when I was 18, I wrote the first chapter of FISTICUFFS, which is basically the first issue, including the infamous scene at the end. And I turned that into a creative writing class, and I tell yeah.
So there's somebody we'd like you to meet.
If you guys want to know why Chad is laughing, go over to Kickstarter and back FISTICUFFS, because you guys want to, there's a reason, and it's earned. The joke, but so we get in the class, and it was my first time doing a creative writing thing, and the way that they did it was submissions were done anonymously. Every week, like 3 people would submit, and it was random. So the week that it was mine, my story was the second story in the packet. So we get in, and as I'm finishing up the first story, like people start laughing, and people start like holy shitting and like elbowing each other, like, and they're like reacting all the right ways, and it's big, and it's like genuine, and it's out loud, and it was like to that point the happiest moment of my life. Still is one of them.
Sure.
So then we get to like the open forum where we're all discussing, and people are talking about all the things they liked about it, and I was touched. But whether I was, again, a bit of snarky asshole or whether I was just self-conscious and didn't believe them, I started roasting my own script against them, and they would defend it back to me, and they were telling me like why I was wrong, and it was just really incredibly validating. And I kind of felt like that was kind of the moment where I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But it also created a problem because now I thought I had, something precious and I had to protect. So I didn't want to develop it. So no hyperbole, it took me 20 years before I actually made Fisticuffs. I wrote the whole thing and I would put it away every few years and bring it out and rewrite it and then put it away and let it collect dust.
Wow.
Yeah, I just didn't have any, and life got in the way too. I had a lot of, as you guys know, Fisticuffs deals with like mental health and alcoholism. And I was comfortable in my alcoholism at that stage, in my drinking and stuff. I was, I had day jobs, I was bartending and a personal trainer, and, I would go out and socialize and stuff. And I still had a healthy fear of rejection. So that's why I would write, but I was more of a hobbyist than like a professional. And I had like day jobs and regular things. And I never pursued it for, like I said, distractions and fear. Finally, spoiler alert in my life, I eventually get sober. I have a really, bad health bottom that shocks me in the, sobriety and helps me get everything straight. And I figure out that I want to start making creative projects. I was going to do a film first, but then COVID happened. And I wanted to do something that I had the comic script of Fisticuffs ready to go, and it was daunting enough. And I had money enough to get started, to get it going, and I just did it. And it was 2020. I started looking for artists. As I told Matt before the show, once I found Stan Yak, it was game over. I kept looking for people, but they were, the best artists would be like number 2 or 3 on the list. Like nobody was usurping him. And then unfortunately, I created a problem for myself where like I kind of turned him in my head to like the pretty girl you want to take the prom, where it's like, oh shit, if I ask him to do my comic and he reads that weird scene in issue 1, he's going to be like, no, and I'm never going to get anybody, and I'm never going to have the courage to ask anybody again. Finally, one day I'm looking at his Facebook feed and he posted a George Carlin clip. And, George Carlin's kind of like my hero, my ultimate hero in this world. Kind of used it as like a North Star. Like if he likes George Carlin, he probably won't think I'm that weird. And fortunately, he liked the script and the rest is history. It took us it took me a long time to realize how this works. He was turning in pages and stuff, but I was kind of like waiting for them to collect. And then I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't aware of Kickstarter. I wasn't aware of like submissions. I didn't know really what to do. I thought it was just going to be like, you make a piece of art, you put it out on the internet, and the world's going to be like, where you been, kid? And here you are. And everybody's just going to scoop it up. And that's not how it works. So it took some years to figure out like what I was going to do, whether I wanted to try like a traditional publisher or so forth. I had a couple offers, but I ultimately decided that I thought it'd be better to do the issues on Kickstarter one at a time. First book I did 2 at a time because one's kind of a sloppy, cliffhanger to leave it on. You want to kind of resolve it, but
Gotcha.
Wanted to do what you did there.
Well, but so we're running it through Kickstarter and stuff, and then at the end, we'll see what if there's publishers interested at the end, and what happens there, and what's up, what's open to that, what opens up along the way. Like so far, Stan and I have started developing a collaboration. It's kind of like a grim dark fantasy. It's called Metroidvania Black. We have clips of that online too, but it's like it sounds like it's like a grim dark fantasy thing. So we've been developing stuff and it's all worked out. Fisticuffs is rolling along and it's continuing to grow. So just trying to keep getting the word out there. And thank you guys for having me to do that today. And
For sure.
Yeah, I love doing it.
So tell us about what is the premise of Fisticuffs? You said, it touches on some heavy topics. It's got some violence. It's got a lot of things, that reflect a lot of different points of interest.
Sure. So if I were to distill it down to like a theme, right? The line we came up with is it's about how much explosive force it takes to crack open a closed mind, right? Because when you're an addict and when you're in the thick of it, you don't see the forest for the trees. It's kind of the lifestyle, and it almost becomes your identity in a way that the relationship I had with alcohol was almost like the way that like the old cliche of like the battered wife who like is like, well, I made him mad, so it's my fault. It was that kind of thing. It was like, well, I shouldn't have drank that night, and that's what it was. And you make excuses for the booze and because you're afraid to lose it because you don't know who you are. So Fisticuffs is a really personal story about just a guy who is unwilling to realize what's going on in front of him and the damage he's causing and the extremity of it too. It's a guy who really just does not lacks perspective and kind of lives in his own narrow worldview. So to distill the story, it begins. It's the story of a functional drunk whose easygoing, comfortable life implodes when a one-night stand has deadly consequences. And it's as you said, it's violent, it's grim, it's gritty, and it's dark. And the reason for that is because I wanted to do a story that somebody like me in my 20s might have responded to. I remember somebody was trying to help me come to terms with myself, and I remember they, at a low point, they brought me a Bible, and I was not religious. I was not. Like I said, I was indoctrinated by George Carlin. Like I didn't want to, but I was like, oh, this isn't going to help me at all. And I wanted to create a story that, somebody like me would, be open to and read it and not be preachy, still entertaining, still whatever. But they can start seeing like the little clues and maybe start to think to themselves, well, yeah, that kind of rings a little true. Well, I've kind of been there myself. And if they want to just be entertained by it, great. Or if they want to use it, as a springboard to evaluate themselves, that's even better. Like that's what I would really love to do because, you don't always think about it when you're going through it. And like I said, a lot of it is like you said, there's a lot of violence and extreme content in there, and a lot of lows for the character. But I wanted to create a character who had basements and bottoms that other people wouldn't scoff at. I think a lot of times people don't help themselves because they don't think they're worth saving or they don't think they're worth helping. They're like, yeah, that stuff's good for somebody else, but nobody would ever understand me. So I wanted to, you do something where a character's done some really heinous shit and you're like, okay, well, at least I didn't do that, and hopefully, use that as a beginning of, again, thinking about yourself critically, but while having fun too, because there is a lot of fun and craziness and insanity in it too.
It sounds like a lot of this is based on your personal experience. Are you, as you're writing this and developing it, are you learning anything about yourself? Are you, getting any catharsis of? I just like using big words.
Keep going. You're doing great. But yeah, 100%. And it also made me aware of, even now, like behaviors where you're not being honest with yourself and things like that. It's there's a there's a lot of scenes that in the book where we spend time with Nick and in the bar around his bar cronies, and even when we're inside Nick's head, there's some disconnect where he's like, I don't belong, I shouldn't be around these people. Like he knows better, and that's something like important that like you don't always realize. It actually almost reminds me of, and it's something that we all do, I think, sometimes intentionally or semi-intentionally. Like it reminds me of, I don't know if you ever heard of a show called Extras.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a great episode of Extras where Ricky Gervais's character thinks he's a big shot and thinks he's made it, and he's at the bar with the low lives and stuff, and they're treating him like a big shot and stuff. And I use this term just not, but anyway, not judgmentally, just describing the show. But he's hanging out with the guys at the bar and stuff, and he's like, oh, I'm better than these people. So he goes to the fancy bar, and then like David Bowie and all the real celebrities like scoff at him as being like no talent and like pudgy and all that stuff. And then he goes back to the bar with the other guys so he can feel like a big shot again, right? And there's a lot of that in this where like I think sometimes we don't challenge ourselves. We stay where we're comfortable. And I don't mean this to like, to besmirch the people that we're around, because like very often we're around like great people and stuff. But you need to challenge yourself and get out of your comfort zone, because and be open to other perspectives. Otherwise, you never hear again the story that helps you make a comic or get sober or change your life. Because if you stay where you are, you're never opened up to that. And it sounds corny and stuff, but like you need to be. Well, one of the things about me in my past life, in those 20s I was talking about, was like I was a personal trainer for years, and they used to teach us about like when you're a trainer and you have clients, create spheres of excellence, where like if you have like 3 people that are all in the same age bracket and they all want the same thing, you put them together so that they all make each other better. And that's a big one, right? Is like getting yourself out there and being around people that can like inform you and help you become a better version of you. And that's especially true I'm finding it in this arena, because like it's easy to stay closed up and whatever. It's harder. It was frankly a little intimidating to come on this show tonight. I have no idea. You guys maybe like scoff down at me and my like dirty little book, but it's like you have to do that, and you have to try to grow. And that was the main thing that I got out of Fisticuffs, right? Was like not just growing in terms of my bad habits and my character and stuff, but like growing into like a writer, hopefully, and kind of a person that I want to be. So it continues to inspire me, and it continues to like make me not want to let myself or the book down. Like I'm going to try to keep doing better and try to keep growing, because I'm not a family man. I'm not having kids, hopefully. So like this is I want to do the best I can by this story, like it was my child. So hopefully just continue to get it out in front of people and keep doing good things with it.
Right on.
Mm-hmm. So is this a finite story that you have planned, or is it possibly could be ongoing?
So Fisticuffs, Nick's story is absolutely finite. It's a 7-issue miniseries. It was advertised as 6, but originally we had this fanciful idea of doing a 52-page 6th issue. And now that I've published a few issues, I know that's silly. I'm better off doing 2 regular-sized issues. So, but we're not changing any of the page count. It's 7 issues. It's finite. Nick's arc is Nick's arc. I don't want to spoil it or try to do something different. There are characters that we set up in the world that may come back. And then my next project that I want to do after this is kind of like a spiritual companion. It deals, with like themes similar, but it's not like a one-to-one thing. It's like loosely same world and stuff, but not like like tonally different. I hate to keep going back to this analogy, but for some reason I can't come up with a better one right now. But like Kevin Smith, the same way his Jersey characters were like whatever, but like you could be a genre apart, or you can be like close to him in one. That's kind of what I'm like loosely constructing. Just I want to just do a bunch of stories that are about things personal to me, and kind of put my spin on them, and keep them interconnected. But yeah, that's the thing. But I don't want to be like make a hard set universe or expect, and I definitely don't want people to be like it's always going to be like this tone, this whatever, this. I don't want to be limited.
So, you said before the show we were talking, and you stated that this was your 4th writing project, or you're working on the 4th issue. Do you feel like you have gotten better as a writer as you've gone on? Mm-hmm. Feel like there is maybe some maturity at the beginning that's lacking, that by the time you get to issue 7, you'll have down pat a little bit better?
Yes, especially on the production side. When we did, I'm very lucky for the team I have. They've been incredibly patient with me, and some of them have said some very nice things along the way. I think they appreciate that, like I care about the story and stuff. That doesn't change the fact that I've been a little annoying with like, hey, can we fix this? Can we fix that and stuff? It's not, I didn't realize how. Now I try to be way more careful with the first draft that I send in the letterer, and try to get all my revises in. I'm trying to be way more clean with what I put up front. But also, yes, to your question, it's made my ability to like distill story much better, especially comics. Like that's what I love the most about comics is the amount of control that you have. You know, like back in I used to dabble in film, and I even made a few little film projects, ish. And when you sit down and you edit those things, it can be incredibly frustrating because you're not just they say you make 3 movies, the one you write, the one you shoot, and then the one you edit, and like once you're down editing, you kind of have what you have and you can't really fix what you're left with. And with comics, you have way more control, and it's also made me a way better storyteller to figure out like what the important beats are. So I sat down for I brainstormed out this short story for an anthology that I just submitted to about 30 minutes before the show started. So hopefully it gets in. But I put a lot into it, and it was definitely a story that was like out of my comfort zone, but I was able to like figure out the emotional beats. And because of Fisticuffs and the way that I've been able to work now, I've really been able to like, distill, words and pictures together, because Todd McFarlane talks about it like, oh, that's all comics are is words and pictures. And when you think about it like that, it's really like, how do you convey A to B to C? And I'm probably getting really wordy with my answer here and shit, but yes, I've become way better at like figuring out what the important bits are, how to break it down. And like, I went from being somebody that would agonize over everything to being somebody that can just throw, the other day when I did that first draft, like I, banged it out in less than 2 hours. And, I know that's, it wasn't perfect. It was just putting sand in the sandbox, but it's, the language, I guess, that I use to, explain story has gotten way better, especially after banging out 7 full issues of Fisticuffs. It's taught me how to be better.
So how does, it's your story. How does the creative process between you and the artist work? I mean, and did your background in film kind of help you or give you any tips or any ideas of how to translate, things to the comic?
Very much so. And, when I initially scripted out Fisticuffs with just, words and, just like a script, just direction and dialogue. When I went through and I broke it in the panels, I didn't know really how to convey that to an artist. So I got out my old film book, and in it they have like a chart, and it's just a lady standing from head to toe, and it explains to you using her body all the different like full shot, medium full shot, short, close full shot, and like it breaks it down into like 15 like segments and stuff. Okay. So when I did the first draft of Fisticuffs, I was using all 15, and it must have driven Stan nuts because like wide shot, close up, close, like that's like language that people use. But when you're like medium, close up, 2 shot, like he must have been like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It must have been so bad. But eventually, like I've kind of shorthanded it a bit more. I still do really in-depth things because I do still look at it as like a filmmaker, a wide shot this, medium shot that. And it's not so much that I expect it to be exactly, this much of your face when I say medium close up. It's that I'm really trying to direct, like I want you to be out here, in close here, and so forth. And to his credit, Stan delivers what I want. And when he doesn't, it's a huge upgrade because he sees things like really cinematically too. And that's something that I'm learning. I have learned and I'm getting better at is like trusting the people you're working with because they're professionals too. And just like I've got like a lifetime of like frames of reference of like I've seen this comic and this movie, and I'm gonna draw on Frank Miller for this and Kubrick for whatever it is. He's got a completely different set of frames of references too, and they're just as good and just as valid. So he'll bring something to it that that you didn't consider. So yeah, I give him incredibly detailed scripts and he gives me beautiful art back, and they're usually pretty close to the same. And when they're not, they're much better. I remember when we first, like the first thing, like the 7th page in the book or 6th page in the book, is has to deal with like a sheet of paper, and like it's like somebody looking at it and then like a close up and then a close up back and it's reflected back. And when he sent me that page, I was so effing excited, and I sent him back like all these like emojis and shit, like this is awesome, blah blah blah. And he's not overly, he was just responded back to me with like a regular smiley face, and he's like, as dramatic as a piece of paper can be. And I was like, okay, I'm way more excited than he is. He's a professional. He does real action scenes. But yeah, it's been a great process, and the team's been really good with me too about like, dealing with the back and forth and stuff. So I'm really blessed. Everybody, Stan, Timothy Brown, Robert Nugent have killed the colors. Dave on letters. Dave's like a professional. Like when Dave was doing the book, one day, when I was doing the Kickstarter page and I was putting Dave up there, I was like, oh, let me just, Google, see which credits or whatever, best are to use and stuff. And when I just Googled his name, the first thing that came up was an old Amazing Spider-Man issue where he's like fighting the Green Goblin on the cover. And I looked up and that shit was hanging on my wall. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking weird. Like, it's right there. So, yeah, these guys are professional. Kiss, Create Kiss has done some variants for me. And, he's been amazing. Like, just, a great collaborator, very generous with I've just gotten to work with some amazing people. And I'm really lucky that, so far, they've, I don't use this term hyperbolically, but they've kind of made my dream come true. Like, this project was my dream project, and they've done it, beyond what I could have hoped. So I'm very lucky.
So, are you obviously, you found your audience through Kickstarter. How and I assume you go to convention, some conventions. How do you, when you're at a convention, do you pitch the book a different way than you pitch it on Kickstarter because you're in person rather than in text?
Yes. Very much. When you're at a table, when I'm at a table, first of all, I'm very conscious about young people. Shoo them away. I actually card people at my table, and I think that's why a lot of
Let me show you the end of this book.
No. I think a lot of local creators like me because they've seen me I think my first signing down here. There was like this young girl came up to the table and she asked about my book, and I was like, how old are you? And she was like 14, and I was like, oh no, none of this. And then instead we segued onto a conversation about who our favorite Robin was. And she just kind of kept there, and I kept the art away from her, and I just kept talking to her until her mom came and picked her up, and the guy was like, oh, that was really cool the way you interacted with her. And I was like, thank you. I just because you don't have to, you don't always have to be, I'm selling fisticuffs. You can just be like, hey, you love comics. I mean, when we're in these environments, we're around people that we love, or that love the same things we do. So there's always something that we can talk about. And when I'm at tables, it depends on the person. If there's somebody that I think might like, the grittier aspects of it, I tell them that. But I'm always forthright about the story and the content, even because it's never a good idea to make somebody think they're getting one thing and then surprise them with another. I had one guy come up, older gentleman, came up with wearing khakis and a nice polo shirt, and started talking to me, asking me about my comic, and I told him the pitch. And I could tell right away, I'm like, this is not for him. But we kept talking. And he asked me why I, did this thing. And I told him my whole story about how, I had a bad bottom and so forth. And then he asked me about religion. And again, I'm not especially religious, but I have been through some experiences. And I have, when I was in the hospital, I had a chaplain that spoke to me, a lot and helped me get through some hard times and stuff. So I just spoke to him honestly about my story and didn't, try to sell him on fisticuffs at all. And our conversation ended and stuff. And he's like, all right, I'll take one of every one. And I was like, really? I didn't think this would be for you. And he's like, it's not, but I've got a grandson that's struggling with addiction, and I think this might help him. So you never know what people are looking for and why. Awesome. All you can do is kind of try to be honest and represent you to the best of your abilities, So yeah, it just depends on the person. And that was one of my favorite sales. And I really hope somewhere out there that kid read it and maybe, did something about, his or maybe thought about, his issues differently.
The active recovery is huge, and it takes a huge level of not just commitment but personal strength as well. So first and foremost, my hat is off to you for you going down that path for yourself. It it sucks that you had to hit that bottom to get to where you are now, but on the other side of the coin, we all have our journeys to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel that in translating aspects of your journey to paper, you have succeeded in doing so with FISTICUFFS?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And it does suck that I had to go through that, but also that that bottom. And I'm not perfect at this. Like we're not perfect at these things every day, but it did help me like recontextualize my life and be like, and understand things differently. When I was younger, I talked about other jobs, treated writing like a hobby. A lot of young people, we think that we have like infinite time and that eventually we'll get to it, or, something. Maybe one day, even if we do die, maybe someday somebody will like mine our computers, like it, and discover our, shit, like it was the, the mosquito in the amber in Jurassic Park, and then we'll be realized. But, I don't know, that's probably more delusional than most, but but you always, when I was young, I definitely thought I had infinite time. When I had that bottom, I kind of thought of myself as like, okay, well, I've got 5 years to try to do something. And I did try. And in that 5 years, I didn't really get anything off the ground. I got close to a few things. I almost did, and took to about the 6th year that FISTICUFFS started happening. And then it took another 4 or 5 years before it got on Kickstarter. And over the last year, it started to like really happen. So it's like, yeah, it did kind of put an idea that like, we all have a ticking clock on us, and that we all have to get serious about, like, if you really want to do something with your life or something, you have to take it seriously, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody's going to, whatever. And it did. And like I said, I'm not perfect about it. Like not every day, like I don't wake up every day and absolutely seize the day and get done everything I need to every day. But I do have that mindset of like, I'm moving towards something and I need to get this done, and then on to the next thing and on to the next thing. So the bottom helped me figure things out, and it helped me get focus. But you also, it also helped me like eventually reappraise my life. When I first got out of I talked earlier too, and we talk a little bit about this later in FISTICUFFS too, where like alcohol becomes part of your identity. It becomes a big part of your identity, because there's always a reason to drink. If you have a bad day, you're, Rick Blaine at the bar, like of all the gin joints in all the world, drowning your sorrows and whatever. If you have a good day, God forbid, you're Stone Cold Steve Austin, clanging and celebrating and just, running amok. So that became like my identity. When you get sober, and when I had that bottom, I got to become more of who I was outside of that, more into the nerdy things, more into the geek stuff. The first thing that helped me get sober, and this is going to sound really weird, but like Funko Pops were integral in getting me sober. They were a substitute addiction, and they really were like something that I really got into and really whatever. So for like the first year and a half, like that was what controlled the idle hands that kept me away from the booze. And then it became, writing more and getting stories out and like, leaving, getting stuff done and so forth. So I actually had a really neat experience the other day where I just kind of wrote out all the projects that I've either gotten out or am developing and have coming out. And I got, a bit more done than I've realized over this time. And it also helps me like assess where I am and where I want to go. And it's, I don't mean to be like rambling and so forth, but it's one of those things where it's like, it is kind of like one foot and step in front of the other, and like not from like a sobriety thing, but like just trying to do something in a positive direction. And like, I'm not saying I'm there yet. I'm beginning to feel like a writer though. And that's starting to feel really good and really positive. And that's beginning to become my identity. So yeah, it's definitely changed a lot.
That's awesome. I cannot tip my hat enough to your journey.
Thank you.
Yes.
So do you have when you process for writing, do you like set aside, certain times a day, or you make notes and then when the inspiration hits, you're
Yeah, I'm a notes guy. I like to, I call it like building a story. I'll start with like, okay, this is. I mean, it could start like really micro or macro. It can start with like, okay, this is the idea of like, this is what I'm doing, and this is like my big beats, or it can start with like, this is a line or the germ of a scene, and like you start building, and you basically what you're doing is. Are you guys baseball fans at all?
Not particularly, but if
there's an analogy I've heard like baseball general managers talk about, like when they're building their team, they start with the aircraft carriers, like the 3 or 4 like heavy hitters or the people that are going to make the team what it is, and then you support it along, with other people like supplemental pieces.
Okay.
That's almost how I write, right? Like I'll figure out the strong beats of whatever story I'm doing. Sometimes it's like I know the characters that I want to do and I know their journey, so I put those all out, and then I figure out like the in-between stuff that connects them, the connective tissue that makes it into something, and then I sit down because like the blank page can be like like a daunting opponent. So I like to kind of be armed with an army of things that I'm going to put into it and make myself feel like I have momentum when I start writing, if that makes sense. So I like to build things, and I like to kind of have a lot of stuff prepared before I actually sit down and start writing. And like, for example, the other day when I had that script, I knew what the piece was about. I had a few of the scenes. That one I even went through so far as to like break it down by page. And once I sat down, I was able to just fill in the blanks. And fortunately, it all came out in one stream, and it worked. And then I spent the rest of the week going in and like really refining it and trying to make it, as perfect and as good as it can be. So, the process differs on the project, but I always like to try to, make sure that I've got something hard and fast that I'm going in with. Otherwise, who knows? And then you get all twisted around, and worse than when you started.
Right on. Yeah, of course.
So you've mentioned that Kevin Smith is a big inspiration. Are there other, writers from any, genre or, comic books that kind of also have influenced your journey?
Absolutely. Well, as I said, probably the overarching one is George Carlin. When I was young, he just really kind of opened my mind up to not just a way of thinking, but a way of like honing your craft. Like he was famous for like just being relentless with his material and like perfecting his delivery. So he was a big one. In comics, Frank Miller was huge. I used to watch a lot of interviews with him and listen about the way he would break down like pacing and time in comics. And, that was something I thought a lot about, because he would talk about how when he got into comics, he would try to make them more cinematic. And then when he, as he stayed in comics, he tried to make comics more comic booky. I think he said like more like he said less so, but I guess like more of like, less cinema and more traditional art. Alan Moore as well, again, just from my age and from like the, the wealth of stuff that he did. His Swamp Thing is one of my favorite runs in comics. And as I go back and I read more Alan Moore now, like he's the direction that I want to kind of push myself in. People like him, Grant Morrison, people that are, write really strong prose. That was always, like I said, I always feel like I write more of like a street cat vernacular. I would like to get more of like a professional sounding. So those two. Recently, I am a huge fan of Ice Cream Man. I think that is just such a great book. I love that so much. One day I want to do my own horror anthology, and I hope it, and in my own voice too, not like what they do, because what they do is so good. I'm ready to collect. I'm about to start the Dead Man that they did. I can't wait to read.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I love the Kryptonite Spectrum.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you should read it.
I loved it. I loved it. It was so good. Those guys are great. Boy, who else? Millar was a big one, when I was younger. Bendis was actually a really big one too. His early stuff like Powers and his Jinx World stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
And then, like we talked about too, Brubaker and Phillips, Criminal, that kind of stuff. And another one is and of course, even though I'm not like, I have, well, I don't know. I like The Boys for what it is, but I love The Pro. The Garth Ennis, Amanda Conner comic. That for a long time, that was my gateway drug to people when they would be like, "Oh, comics are just corny," or Superman being like your grandfather. I'm like, no, read this and see what you think. I love that book because it's kind of like what I like to do. You do something like a little smutty, but like with a little like heart behind it, like in its weird way. I mean, yes, you have to kind of take out like there's some elements in it that I think are there's one scene in particular you're a little but ultimately it's just it's a Wonderful Life superhero. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorite like stories. Like I love the notion that like every life matters and that like everybody sometimes we lose sight of the value in our lives. And I love that idea that they're like, well, you can give anybody powers and they'll ultimately try to do the right thing. And then they pick this unlikely person who's on paper the worst superhero imaginable, and you wind up finding out that she's her heart's deep down there and in the right place. So and those are just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's so many more that I'm just forgetting, but
well, now I'm going to turn the question on its head. Are there any writers who you avoid like the plague?
Can I do a filmmaker?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, watch me get a bunch of angry people here. Guys,
that's Fred Scwartz.
Guys, I'm sorry. I get it. We all like our stuff. I don't like Zack Snyder. I don't get it. I just don't. I don't get the appeal. I always say like the analogy I use. Remember when you were a kid and you invite the kid from the other kid from class home, to hang out and play after school, and you let him use your toys and stuff. And then he's playing with your action figures and he's doing everything wrong. He's got the wrong figure with the wrong this, and it's driving you nuts. That's what watching a Zack Snyder movie's like for me. He just doesn't get the characters the way that I would like them.
I can still say that I haven't seen the Justice League or the Flash, so but
yeah.
Well, you're not.
I like the analogy because there was this one kid I knew who would take his GI Joes, put them in the middle of the street, and set them on fire.
You sure that wasn't you, Chad?
No, I still have mine.
Oh, okay.
That's ridiculous.
They crashed.
God, it's like Sid from Toy Story. I'm trying to think if there's any other writers that I avoid like the plague. I'm not going to call. There are some creators who I don't, their personalities are not for me, but I'm not going to call them out because they're way higher on the totem pole than me, and maybe they like me. I don't know. I don't want to upset them.
I'm not asking you to burn bridges here. So.
Yeah. No, off the top of my head, there are no real writers that like I really have a grudge against. There are sometimes that there is a writer that doesn't fit a character that I like, and that might bother me. Especially when a lot of these characters have a wide range of flexibility, like we were talking about Daredevil before the show. And like, Daredevil, I mean, you can do anything. You can do like grim, gritty Frank Miller, or you can do like wacky, like, hey, I'm Mike Murdock, my own twin brother. And like, it all fits under Daredevil. And there's sometimes when people just take that too far or put too much of their own version of things into characters, and that bothers me. But there's nobody that I can think of off the top of my head that I run from. Like I try to give people a chance.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the Kickstarter campaign for FISTICUFFS. Like, how's that going for you?
Fantastic. Right now we're in late pledges. So we're we have this show today. We have another show next week, Part-Time Fanboy, and then perhaps I think another 2 articles that we may be coming. So we are trying to let the late pledges run until the 12th of September. And then we're going to relaunch with FISTICUFFS Book 5 in the end of October. So right now, we are fully funded. It was a $3,000 campaign. We are funded to the tune of 62 and change.
Nice.
So we did really well. Thankfully, our fans, we had great support this time around, and I'm really touched and really blessed. We got to do a lot of really cool stuff that we didn't do before. Got to play around with some foil covers, even metal. We got some little figurines of our big bad in this in this particular issue. This is the most superhero-y we get, and our slovenly protagonist finds himself in public when a giant blooming onion monster is on a rampage, wreaking havoc at a football game. And it's kind of like a make or break moment where he kind of decides, like, is he the kind of dude that cowers and stays where he is in this particular scene, on a toilet, or does he, pull his pants up and get into the ring and try to save the day? So we had some really neat 3D printed little figurines of our Onion Blossom character, and we got a really sweet, awesome kind of sexy cover from Kiss Kiss, and just a lot of really awesome stuff. Like I said, we're 4 issues in, and we're beginning to see the full picture of our protagonist and his struggles. And get in now, because it's definitely one of the most fun issues. It's definitely one of the most out there, and we got some heavy shit coming up soon. So get in now while there's still smiles and and laughs. Check it out, guys. It's like I said, it's a labor of love. It's a really dark, entertaining story that hopefully has some meat and bones behind it, and will resonate with people. I like to describe it as like the dark sense of humor of The Boys, the explosive action of Invincible, and the kind of personal storytelling that you might find in an early Scorsese movie. So
Nice.
So you've definitely had success on Kickstarter. Have you learned anything, as you've gone along that has helped you kind of, because I know from talking to the other creators, every Kickstarter is different. There's the highs, there's the very lows, there's the nail biting,
I used to have hair. I used to not have this wrinkle, and this area of my face didn't collapse. But then I started doing Kickstarters, and in the last year and a half, I've aged like Lincoln during the Civil War. My face is just sunken in and fallen apart. But they are hard. There are a lot of stress. There are a lot of worry. There are a lot of emotions, where it's ups and downs. Some days you feel like the king of the world. Some days you feel like, the worst, drain on, you're draining on your friends and your followers and everything. And it's emotional. So you pick up things. One thing I learned, if anybody's listening, or at least that I've tried, was I found that the shorter campaigns tend to be a little better. That was wisdom I got early on from people. And I think for my first campaign, I still felt the need to do a 20-something day campaign. This last campaign, I did 17 days, and it was a lot better from a stress point of view. And it kind of followed the same curve where it's big beginning, lull in the middle, big end. So if you're new to this and stuff, when people give you wisdom, it's usually good wisdom. Vet it, ask a few people, but listen to people, because one thing we talked about a lot on the show is all the time I wasted with other endeavors or worrying or being afraid and distractions. And there's a quote I've always liked. It's be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And it's if in this community, I found where if you just take the step and you just start asking around, other creators will lift you up and they'll try to give you advice. People aren't out for the most part, to be cruel or fight or sad. Sometimes, beef will be, people are going to beef, and I'm sure I try to stay out of it. But for the most part, the community is friendly, kind, cool, and helpful, and everybody will help you, because we all empathize. We're all trying to realize our dreams.
Yeah,
and,
it's all one big hustle.
Yeah, and really, you realize you're not in direct competition with anybody. Nobody's buying my book and putting down somebody else's. We're all supporting each other, and we're all trying to make indie comics as good as they can be, and just comics in general, because we all love this.
Well, usually at this point, I would ask the question, what do you hope that the readers get out of the book besides a good read. But I think you've pretty much driven that point home.
Yes. I think so too. I'm content to just say I urge everybody, if you're at all on the fence about this, and you guys that listened, just go to Global Comics. We have the first issues for you to read. Again, mature 18 plus content. It is age gated there, but I just like to warn everybody. But check it out. See if it's your cup of tea. If you're a Global Comics member, book 2 is there. Beyond that, you're gonna have to go to the Kickstarter. We have 1 through 4 available, and 5 is coming out this fall. And I urge you guys to check it out. And test drive it. I really think it's a book you guys won't regret.
Awesome. Well, Fred Scwartz, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for being so cool. You guys have been great.
Yeah. FISTICUFFS, awesome comic. We talked to a lot.
Welcome back anytime.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And lots of folks they're learning their craft. They're at various stages of learning their craft. Like, I got to tell you guys that are listening, FISTICUFFS is a ready-made comic. It is good to go. Check it out. Fred Scwartz and company are the real deal.
Thank you, man.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Can I pull quote that?
Absolutely.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. And, I didn't realize before this evening that we were already friends on Facebook. So.
Matt, we'll have to be friends too if we're not. We'll double check.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll make that happen.
But thank you guys.
So, Chad, who are we talking to next?
Next week, we have 2 interviews. It's Werewolf Week. And our Monday interview is a Source Point book. So
awesome. We'll take it and run and howl at the moon. So, Fred Scwartz, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Folks, the comic once more is FISTICUFFS. It's funding now on Kickstarter. So get out there and do some good in the world. Fund some indie comics, read some indie comics, buy and shop local, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. Until next time, he's Chad, I'm Matt, and you can find us every day at comic-watch.com, your home for fandom news and pro reviews. Thank you so much. Till next time, we'll see you.
Bye.